Hello, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It is now 8 a.m. My name is Colin Burns. I'm an administrative hearing officer. This is a appeal of a approval of a wireless right-of-way permit. Location is 30145.5 Morning View Drive. Let's go ahead and state our appearances for the record, starting with the applicant.
Yeah, my name is Alan Galloway. I'm at Davis Wright Tremaine LLP here for applicant Crown Castle Fiber. I'm joined by Mark Myers and Scott Longhurst, also of Crown Castle Fiber.
And for the city?
I'm Patrick Ackes on behalf of the city.
Is Ms. Karish here?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Thank you. Ms. Karish from the City Attorney's Office. And for the appellant.
Good morning. My name is Ariel Strauss, counsel for the appellant.
Okay, and Mr. Strauss, it appears you have the appellant with you. Can you?
Yes.
Yeah, Lindsay Navama. And introduce yourself. You can say your name. This is Stella Navama.
Great, thank you. Do we have any housekeeping items to take care of before we get started?
No, we do not.
Okay.
I do want to make sure that we get copies of the PowerPoints that are being displayed, including, I think, both appellant and the city had PowerPoints yesterday. So I just want to make sure we get copies of those.
Yes. The city's indicating they'll make sure to send copies over. Thank you. And do the parties waive reading of the procedures?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Thank you. City, do you want to make a 15-minute presentation?
Yes. This item is appeal of wireless right-of-way permit 2512. The existing facility is on Southern California Edison pole 751003E at 30145.5 Morning View Drive in the public right-of-way. This item was originally noticed for June 26th and continued to today at the same time. Director made all applicable findings under the Malibu Municipal Code and per federal law. Approval of a qualifying eligible facilities request is ministerial, and federal law compels approval once the fixed criteria are met. An appeal was timely filed. Staff reviewed the claims and found that they do not raise errors or provide substantial evidence that would support overturning the approval or demonstrate that the preponderance of the evidence does not support it. The application was reviewed and conditionally approved by Planning, Building, LA County Fire, Public Works, and the city's third-party wireless consultant. The base station is existing under Wireless Communications Facilities Permit 1213 and subsequent approvals. Concealment is retained and no substantial change would result as defined by the FCC. Radio frequency exposure is predicted at no more than 12.25% of the FCC general public limit at accessible areas. Codes are additionally enforced through plan check, engineering studies before final inspection, and RF verification before operation. The grounds of appeals are separated into sections A and B, starting with A, asserting the application does not qualify as an EFR. There were prior permits, and as far as section 1.6100B5, it's based on construction and a previous approval, and that was satisfied under Wireless Communications Facility 1213. There's also conditions related to the permit term as part of the subject EFR under conditions 7 and 64. The record also shows that continuous operation is not a federal criterion. And further, the RF report showed that there would be no more than 12 0.25% as mentioned at the publicly accessible areas. The figures quoted in the grounds are the antenna centerline values and not at those publicly accessible areas. Pole owner approval and GO 95 and SE standards are addressed in conditions 29 and 46, and the pole owner stricter standards control. Materials responsive to checklist items 16, 17, and 24 were reviewed before completeness. There's also condition 37 regarding APCO ANSI, which is verified at plan check and implemented through final inspection.
APCO ANSI, is that an electrical standard?
Yes. And condition 27 is also provided that requires insurance naming the city before issuance. There's also removal security held in condition 28. And condition number 25 is the city's inspection and entry provisions. Future equipment is not authorized for installation or operation. And lastly, condition 60 requires that all sector maximum power testing with the city's consultant, and that does capture the down tilt and beam forming mentioned in the grounds. Some of the operating conditions are on screen. There's a 10-year term citing in signage, plan check, NPE, sealed studies, and the 30-day post-installation testing with the city's consultant.
No, I think we might be on different slides than you are.
Oh, it seems like it's advanced. Okay. The conditions of approval are shown on screen now.
Yeah, they are. Sorry, Mr. Burns, if I can just, if we could go back, I think one slide, the APCO ANSI, that's actually I guess structural standard, not electrical.
Okay, thank you.
APCO ANSI is a site hardening. It's recommendations for site hardening for public safety networks.
Thank you. The approval is ministerial and not subject to CEQA. The categorical exemptions are stated in the alternative, and the project is exempt from a coastal development permit under local implementation plan section 13.4.8 and the 1978 Coastal Commission exclusions. Staff recommends the hearing officer deny the appeal and issue a decision affirming approval of the applicant's eligible facilities request. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the appellant wish to make a presentation?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Has a number of diagrams, but may help if I can get the screen. I'll grab this if that's okay. I think there's 5 minutes.
Correct.
Thanks. Okay, great. So I was not involved in the initial filing of the appeal, and there is no case-specific brief. So I thought it helpful to identify many of the issues in the initial appeal and the other issues that you've been hearing about so far through a number of slides. Obviously, there are no additional pieces of evidence whatsoever. Everything is just from the record. So we're going to start with something that we are all familiar with, which is the statement by staff that because this application is changing from a fairly close-in arm-based antenna instead, what's on this side, to a line-mounted antenna that is more than 6 feet away, it does not qualify as an eligible facilities request on the basis that it is not an insubstantial modification. There is a last time we only had an email. We had the same email. In addition, here there is a formal letter stating this this problem. The problem is more severe here because the increase in size is happening in 2 dimensions, whereas in some of the previous applications, the antenna was moved further out on the same line. This one is moved out in a different dimension. So the poles are out towards the street or towards the owner's house, whereas the lines are parallel to the street. So that 6-foot increase in this case is not incremental from what already existed, but it is a totally new 6-foot increase. Staff interpreted the EFR regulations correctly. All turned to the SCE requirements that I think we're familiar with, that the cable messenger mounted facilities have to be 6 feet of clearance face to face, pole to the edge of the antenna. In this case, again, this document is in the record as Exhibit H. It doesn't seem to be referenced in any way in the communications, but it was attached as Exhibit H, so it is in this record. Here is the diagram that Edison provides.
Go back real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
Point out the important points this diagram.
Thank you. So this diagram here, what it shows is that the requirement that Edison imposes that when it is a strand mounted antenna, the distance of 6 feet from the face of the pole has to be to the edge, in the inner edge of the antenna. Here are the plans that were submitted in January of 2026. And what you can see is that initially they were intended to be compliant with the Edison standards. You can see that the interface of the antenna is 6 feet from the pole, not the outer edge of the antenna. This is also consistent with the 2025 plans were submitted. The 2024 dated plans do not indicate the distance, but I assume that they were the same as the 2025 plans and the 2026 plans. What we have in the approved plans, which interestingly is dated the same date, January 7, there's no change or revision noted on the plans, even though they're signed, but we can see that now this arrow extends to the outer edge of the antenna rather than the inner edge in order to qualify as an EFR, but again, not qualify with the Edison requirements. I'll keep moving through Edison issues. Again, this is a case where the maximum size of the shroud around the radio exceeds those required dimensions. Now, I want to point out here, the maximum dimensions of equipment, parentheses, separate or combined, and parentheses, shall be no more than. Here, the issue is the height number is a maximum of 18. We have a number of 27.2 inches. Now, if you think that maybe height is the same thing as width, how do we know which one goes in which direction, which one is the Y or Z direction? We also see that the width number, 29.7, 30. So you have one of them that doesn't comply for certain.
Is that part of the approved plans or is that the SCE standard?
These are the, sorry, can you ask that question again?
Is that the approved plan from the city or is that the SEC standard?
Here is copying the SCE standard,
Okay.
which is Exhibit H. This is a copy of sheet D1, item 6 of the approved plans.
Okay.
Now, there's a term here, separate or combined. We might want to try to understand what does that mean. I want to say what it doesn't mean, which is that it doesn't mean that you can count up all the different pieces of equipment. So let's say you have one pole attachment, another pole attachment. You wouldn't have linear dimensions. You would have volumetric dimensions. So it wouldn't make sense, for instance, to take, let's say, the switch, which is 6 inches across, and add those 6 inches to the width of the shroud. That would be both senseless and almost impossible to do. So typically when there are maximum dimensions of multiple pieces of equipment that are being summed, you get volumetric measurements. Whereas here, what it means is that each of these dimensions can't be exceeded. So you can't have anything that's more than 18 inches in the height side.
But what you're saying is that the approved plan does not comply with the dimensions of an eligible facilities request.
I'm saying that no, in this case, what I'm saying, it doesn't comply with the Edison requirements to be installed on a pole. The eligible facilities request doesn't restrict the size of these types of attachments because it is within the maximum of 6 feet. But the strand mounting is outside the eligible facilities request. Now I'm going to go through a number of
Strand mounting in the SCE plan.
The strand mounting, sorry, yes, the strand mounting that would be required by Edison in order to actually allow it to be constructed. The proposal is not consistent with the Edison plan, but is consistent with the EFR standards. Thank you for that question. And I appreciate being able to make that correction. So I'm going to run through the checklist. These are issues with the checklist. We've in the issue briefs for other cases, they're discussed there, but it might be helpful to have it be discussed here. So there's a requirement to be a letter of authorization and that there be any additional authorizations and licenses. That's items 12 and 13. And again, it says any additional authorizations per the carrier, FCC, CPUC, ROW agency. That would include the JPA or SCE. Crown Castle's response to the deficiency letter says, none, all documents from relevant agencies have already been provided. And this is what they provided. We've discussed this before. This is a document from the joint pole authorization. It has no date. These fields are fillable in the version that's in the record. It's not like a printed PDF. It is attached with the document of 2019 saying that they are a member of the JPA. There's nothing specific to this site at all. And I'm sure Mr. Galloway will point out something if I'm missing it. I don't think I have. So far, we haven't heard anything to that effect. Another piece that's missing is the engineer structural certification. So there's a requirement, item 24, that there be a certification report on and a report on physical condition of the facility certified professional engineer licensed in the state of California. Instead, there's this response. It is responsive qualitatively. It's not certified by anybody. They refer instead to item 17, which is a report. This is,
Can I see that response again? Sorry.
yes, absolutely. And this is the entirety of the response. It's a PDF page, but the rest of it's blank.
Okay, thank you.
So item 17 is what's known as OCalc. OCalc is used to estimate how much pole loading is available based on different types of poles and pole characteristics. It's from March 17, 2024, and based on the inputs that are provided based on various assumptions and modeling about different types of poles. However, it's not certified by anybody. In theory, it could be. I mean, you could print it out and then certify at the bottom, but that's not how it is. There are 4 more pages. I just put this up as a visual, and you can see in the record that it doesn't have a certification. Another issue, the site hardening requirements, which we were addressing before. So this is the provision in the resolution up here describing that these site hardening requirements are intended to ensure that the facilities remain operational during very adverse conditions because they're important to have that type of communication, high winds, earthquakes, etc. This was identified as deficient, and the requested solution was a little bit hard to understand. I think that may have been why it resulted in not being addressed properly. So it says, due to City Council Resolution 21-17, which is this, the site must comply with ANSI App Code 2.1-106.1, the 2019 version. Add a note to the cover, and then said, add a note to the cover sheet stating that live on-site RF study will be required to be conducted at the final inspection to verify the computer-generated RF EME report. Now, these two things should not be combined. There are ANC EEE standards that relate to RF, but that's not what this is. So it seemed there was an error in combining these two deficiencies into one paragraph. With the result, the response said, the note has been added to the cover sheet and can be found on the scope of work section of the cover sheet. Sorry, I went the wrong direction. Yes. Here's the scope of work. Let's see. Yes, so I put that out of order. Here's the scope of work. Here's the note. Live on-site RF study will be required to be conducted at the final inspection to verify the computer-generated RF EME report. But that's the ANSI IEE standards, apparently. But it seemed like that there was some confusion, and the site hardening has never been addressed. Now, site hardening requires site-specific analysis. It requires that what you look at is the likely wind shear. You look at the potential ground movements. Obviously, it has to do with what type of soil it is, how close is it to a fault line, things like that. And you can't really do that as a post-approval dynamic because you're going to have to have different bolts. You have to have a lot of interaction that typically isn't what you get at the post-inspection phase. Usually what you do is you confirm that what you approved is actually what's in the dirt. So this is not addressed.
How do they confirm that?
There would be an analysis that would be presented to assess how those factors affect this site and say our construction standards will not be interfered with because of those wind speed. And the problem is this standard is very qualitative. I mean, it's done by engineers, but the aspects of it are qualitative. It says identify if this site is subject to flooding, identify if this site is subject to wind speeds, identify those wind speeds.
And you can't do that after approval of the wireless permit?
You could do it, but you're likely to need to build something different from what was approved. I mean, let's say you need to have it be hugged in tighter because of the amount of sail that you get, or maybe you need a different type of bracket, or maybe, I mean, I can't anticipate what it would look like, but it's not the type of thing where you can just check that what you approved matches what's out there in the ground. So I was pointing out here that really these types of approvals should not be occurring post initial approval. So that's what an example here, the one item that's missing is the hazardous materials business plan. The answer in the staff report for today is the hazardous materials business plan is a generally applicable regulatory matter addressed at construction and verified at building and plan check. But that's not what the resolution says. The resolution said the applicant must submit all documents, information, and any other materials necessary to allow the city to make required findings and ensure the proposed facility will comply with applicable laws and not endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. That's a standard at the application intake stage. I'm going to keep going.
2 more minutes, if that's okay. 2 more minutes.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then just let me back up for one more piece. You know, there's also supposed to be an accuracy statement under penalty of perjury, item 33. and it says to bind the applicant attesting on a penalty of perjury to accuracy of information provided. Instead, what we have, and it also is an aspect of they have to identify that they're authorized to represent the applicant.
Is
So
it in the conditions of approval or is that in the resolution? That's 33.
this is I don't know the answer to that. It wouldn't make sense to be a condition of approval because what it's saying is the accuracy of the information provided in the application. So it'd be unfortunate if only after they approved it, they said, oh, we're not sure that we can certify to what you approved. So it's item 33 of the checklist. It probably should be item 1 or the final item. For whatever reason, it's 33. There is an authorization letter. That's great. But there's no attestation on a penalty of perjury. There is a statement that facility will be in compliance. Again, not under penalty of perjury. The RF statement is also supposed to be under penalty of perjury. There's an FCC compliance statement. Again, oh, I'm incorrect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm wrong. This one is good. The others, however, you can see are not. That is my run through. I just wanted to cover all the ground. How many time do I have for a bottom?
You have 5.
Thank you. Excellent.
Mr. Strauss, and does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
Yes, I do, Mr. Burns. Thank you again, Alan Galloway, for the applicant Crown Castle Fiber. I'm going to try to do this in 12 minutes and save 3 minutes for rebuttal. So I want to step back here a little bit. As noted in paragraph 137 of the 2014 order that established the FCC rules here, section 6409A1 provides that notwithstanding what is now codified as 47 USC 332C7, which normally governs wireless applications, notwithstanding that aspect of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 or any other provision of law, the state or local government may not deny and shall approve any eligible facilities request for a modification of an existing wireless tower or base station that does not substantially change the physical dimensions of such tower or base station. And I go back to this because, we've talked about that the 2014 order eliminates discretionary review for EFRs and the approval is ministerial. But I want to go back to what the statute is really doing and what the rules are really doing. A key goal of section 6409 and the FCC rules was to encourage deployment of wireless facilities on existing structures that were already there, rather than doing completely new builds that actually have more impact and more detriment to views, cities, and land use. In paragraph 5 of the 2014 order, the FCC notes that reusing existing resources facilitates faster deployment and also reduces cost. And the language in the statute, this is the language Congress enacted, existing wireless tower or base station, and the definitions that the FCC gave those terms in its rules, which were upheld by the Fourth Circuit in the Montgomery County case, ensures that the expedited EFR process does not result in new wireless facilities on a structure that the state or the local authority has never approved using its discretionary review under 332C. So basically, the idea is, look, city or municipality, you have approved certain towers or other support structures to have wireless facilities on them in the past. Since you have already approved those in the first instance through a discretionary approval process, we are going to expedite deployment of new facilities on those existing structures. And so while we've emphasized that the EFR approval is ministerial, all of the support structures that are the eligible facilities and eligible facilities request have all been approved for co-location of wireless deployments by the city at some point. As the FCC stated in the 2014 order, paragraph 174, the term existing requires that wireless towers or base stations, and in these cases where it's not a tower specific for wireless, it's a base station. If it's a tower specific for wireless, it's a tower. They have been reviewed and approved under the applicable local zoning and siting process, or that the deployment has been otherwise received a form of affirmative state or regulatory approval. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the key thing is, if this is a tower or a base station, as defined in the 2014 order, then that support structure, not the antenna, not a particular antenna on it, but the support structure itself is the eligible facility. And this is frankly why appellants' arguments and the contention in this appeal that permits have lapsed or if some sort of equipment changed, those allegations are really irrelevant because they don't go to whether this support structure, that the one that the city previously approved for wireless facilities, is an eligible support structure, is an eligible facility. And none of that requires some sort of continuous operation or that some antenna be there for all time once it's placed. In fact, the definition of base station is any, well, let me start with tower because they refer to each other. Tower is any structure built for the sole or primary purpose of supporting any commission license, that is FCC licensed, or authorized antennas and
Yes,
associated facilities. Yes,
Edison pole, Edison pole. And there's a wireless facility on it, so it becomes an existing tower. The wireless facility is completely removed. And it's only an Edison tower and it stays that way for years. Are you saying you can come on and through streamline review, add a facility that's within the eligible facilities request?
Well, let me walk you through that because it's an Edison pole, right? So it's not for the primary purpose of supporting FCC facilities, right? It's primarily there to provide power. So that's a base station. A base station includes other structures, something that's not a tower as they've defined it, quote, that support or house an antenna, transceiver, or other associated equipment that constitutes part of a base station at the time the relevant application is filed with state or municipal authorities. And it does not include structures that do not at the time support or house base station components. So to answer your question, Mr. Burns, it depends if someone puts a wireless facility on there and it's approved through the in the first instance, and we have a radio, we have an antenna, we have some cables. So all of those are elements of that base station. If all of that is removed, if there are no components, no antenna, transceiver, or other associated equipment that was part of that base station, and it's gone, then that's excluded because the definition says does not include structures that do not at the time of the application support or house base station components. However, if there was an antenna, transceiver, and other equipment, and the antenna falls off or is blown away or is removed because it wasn't functioning and the other equipment is still there, that's still a base station. So it's really, the question is answered by the definition of base station.
Okay. And
So-
one more question, sorry. What about this? What about the arguments that the SCE regulations require components to be installed outside of the limits of an eligible facilities request? And that's how these applications are coming in originally. And then somebody apparently gets wise to it and says, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to change it to within the eligible facilities request. This isn't going to be a situation where Crown Castle just goes out and installs them according to the SCE standards and kind of shrugs its shoulders and said, well, okay, I guess we got away with this one.
No, I mean, the idea that this is some sort of conspiracy between SCE and Crown Castle to evade the rules here is just ridiculous. I will just say that, you know, the appellants concede, right, that the approved plan does qualify as an EFR. I mean, we just heard Mr. Strauss say that. What they're doing instead is they're speculating as to what SCE will require, and it's based on a misreading of SCE's requirements. It's an assumption, I guess, that there's going to be a conflict between the SCE requirements and the EFR requirements, but that is not supported by the evidence. There is no evidence that SCE has rejected similar designs. They are being speculative, and it would be improper to consider that in your decision. As in other cases, you know, here the notice of decision reflects that the approved plans qualifies as an EFR as they've conceded. It also notes that SCE authorization is required, and appellant's interpretation of requirement 5.3 D3 again is incorrect. I noticed that on their slide they don't include 5.3 D5. I would submit that if appellant's reading of D3 were correct, D5 would make no sense. But regardless, there's no evidence that SCE is requiring a change, or that this idea that Crown Castle Fiber is submitting applications saying they're going to do something and then they're not going to do it. If that's what happens, you know, that could be identified. That's a problem that can be identified later. But speculating that it might happen is not a basis for denying an application where the approved plans clearly fit within the definition of an EFR. And I'll just point out that, you know, the other supposed deficiencies in this have been thoroughly rebutted by the city's administrative hearing report and the presentation by the city that you just saw, Mr. Burns. And I do want to remark on the thorough city process here. The city of Malibu has implemented an unusually robust process. There's a 35-item checklist that we've seen submitted with these applications, right? As part of that checklist, the applicant even pays the bill for the city to have outside consultants review conformance with the city's requirements. That's reflected on page 1 of those checklist documents. And it's got a checkbox for consultant conformance review, where the applicant pays the actual cost plus 30%. And then, there are literally 35 items that, have to be shown to be compliant. And in each of these cases, the city has prepared an administrative hearing report. And as in the other appeals, the one here does an excellent job of rebutting applicants' bases for appeal, including every single allegation regarding incompleteness. And to the extent that appellant's arguments amount to an argument that some final post-construction inspection is going to be failed or has not taken place or might find something, that can't be a basis for denying the application. I mean, that would create a chicken egg problem, right? You have to get an approved application, as was approved here, to have something built and then have that final inspection. And again, if the final inspection, if I get approval to build a house and I instead build an office building, on the final inspection, that's going to be pretty obvious. So it's not that there's no remedy for this. It's not that this would not be a problem that appeared later if that was really the case, but it's no basis for denying. If I submit something to the planning department saying, here's my plan for a house and it conforms to the requirements and it should be approved and it's in a residential zone, you can't deny my building a permit for a house because you have a secret theory that somehow I'm really going to build an office building. And so any issues that do arise in the final inspections can be corrected in due course and could be cited if there was a violation. I would just say also that the record here, as in other appeals, reflects the city issued a notice of incompleteness, identifying, in compliance with federal law, the information and documentation that the city determined was missing from the application. Crown provided the missing items in each of those cases, and under the shot clock, that told the shot clock, but also the rules say that second or subsequent notices of incompleteness may not specify missing documents or information that was not delineated in the original notice of incompleteness. That's in the rules. And so this idea that there could be things that are incomplete that might be, maybe the city didn't notice, because they've issued that notice of incompleteness, they needed to list everything there. And they did. And those have all been addressed. And I would just finally close by saying that, the shot clock requires that local governments act on these EFR requests within 60 days. And we've talked about that can be told and was told by the incompleteness notice. But I do want to point out that the shot clock did expire in this case. And the record reflects the deemed granted letter was sent on April 13th, 2026. So not only was this actually approved, but it also qualifies as deemed granted. And that's to preserve Crown's rights. I mean, that's important in the record in all of these cases. And then, finally, I'll just say one thing about the fire safety and SCE. The design was reviewed by a licensed electrical engineer and by the building safety department. There is a document that I want to share just briefly on the screen, which addresses the electrical issues that
For a minute,
Oh,
give the appellant 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. So I'm just going to share this. Well, maybe I can just point it out in the record and you can review it since we're short on time. But this is item 16. It's the May 7th, 2025 letter from Maximize Communications Group, which appears to be an outside contractor in Crown Castle. But it's certified by Walter Camp, professional engineer who's an electrical engineer, and addresses all the short circuit fault current issues that have been raised in these appeals. And it's the same letter that's in all of them. It deals with voltage drop and provides specs for the equipment. So I'll save my 30 seconds remaining maybe for rebuttal of the extra 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Burns. I'm done.
Thank you. Any rebuttal from the city?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Burns. So,
I'm gonna let the city go first, if that's okay, just keep it in that.
oh, I
order.
apologize. Yes.
That's all right. Any rebuttal from the city?
Yes.
Do you have
oh,
sorry, go ahead if you'd
oh,
like.
please go.
Okay, I just have two comments, Mr. Burns, just in response to what Mr. Galloway was just saying. One, just to clarify, and these are really just to clarify how eligible facilities work and the reviews work under the rules. If there is something that is missed in a notice of incompleteness, that does not mean the city can never raise it. It means that you can't stop the shot clock for that item. It could still be raised later. It could also, if the item that was missing is, you know, substantial evidence and it's material to the findings, it could be the reason for a denial, right? That is not, I think everyone would agree with that. Like if a application came in with no plans or something, and the city missed that somehow, and later asked, like the shot clock wouldn't be able, you wouldn't be able to stop the shot clock, but you know, if they never got the plans, they wouldn't have to approve the project. So just wanted to be clear on that. It's not it doesn't limit the evidence that needs to be in the record to that is material, substantial evidence that goes to the findings. And then the second point, and this is just to put again on the record, since Mr. Galloway raised the deemed granted letter, it's not relevant to your hearing. He's just preserving his rights as I understand it, which is fine, but it's not relevant to your the task before you.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Okay, and the appellant.
Thank you. I categorically disagree with Mr. Galloway about his explanation about what a base station exactly is in this situation, but I think it's not relevant to this case. This is not a case where we are asserting that it is, at least in my presentation, we didn't discuss anything to do with whether it was an existing facility. The question here is whether it's an EFR, a situation where Edison has, based on the manual that the applicant submitted, will allow this facility to be built. There's nothing whatsoever contradicting that in the record. There's nothing Mr. Galloway said that contradicts it based on actual evidence. Speculating about how or stating how Edison may behave in some other situation is not evidence. It cannot be added as evidence at this stage. The notion that somehow there's a secret theory, that's a quote of Mr. Galloway, misreading. Someone point out how I'm misreading the Edison manual. I mean, explain it to me, explain to all of us. There's no other explanation. And Edison has not put any input into this case. The only communication that we have that's purported to be related to Edison is a JPA document. So there's no basis to assume that Edison does not enforce the manual. And to the contrary, for whatever reason, and I can only think of one reason, Crown Castle submitted an application that was 6 feet away. And only after the city said, we can't approve that as an EFR, did they move it out. So if there's no reason to do it that way to begin with, why would they have done it? Why would they have submitted something that doesn't qualify as an EFR application? It makes no sense. And the other piece is there's nothing that Mr. Galloway has said that suggests that Edison is now bound by the EFR regulations. They're not. So there's no reason to assume that this can be built in an EFR conformance way because Edison can do whatever it is they want and they presumably have valid reasons for it. Mr. Galloway pointed out that this is a modification of a previous pole and approved site, and therefore you can't impose any additional standards, for instance, related to safety or structural. I agree entirely with Ms. Karish about why that's not correct. But there's another piece to it. You know, that was 2 fires ago. Those fires were caused by mishaps on poles. I assume Edison changed some of their standards too. I hope so, at least. And I think it is ridiculous to assume that these changes in the standards the city uses for reviewing these facilities is not related to safety and not related to something that is within their ambit as recognized in the 2014 EFR regulations. I think that it is also clear that a number of the items from the checklist are missing. I don't think that all of them have been addressed or rebutted. And those also are requirements. The 2014 order is explicit that the applicant does have to submit an application and the application has to be complete in order to be approved. I'd say the last thing is that the EFR question is largely one about characterization of the application. It's not about the ultimate approval. They can get approval a different way. If they say that they need this site and it'll be an effective prohibition if they don't get it, they will get it via the regular application process. but they're not entitled to mischaracterize it as a particular type of streamline and very straitjacket application. If it doesn't fit very narrowly, very tightly, and based on the city's strong interest, based on the city council's goal to preserve to maximum their local authority, then it should be instead processed in normal due course, and they can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to make a rebuttal?
Yeah, I do. Just two things, Mr. Burns. One, I didn't say that there could be no conditions of approval because of this being an existing site. I said that because there was a wireless facility approved there before, it's a base station under the rule, and then because the application meets the EFR requirements, it's an EFR. So it does need to be approved, but I just want to be clear. I did not say what Mr. Strauss attributed to me just now. With respect to, you know, I guess the fact that they admit that it's an EFR, again, they don't have evidence that they are speculating about what will happen during some sort of final inspection, and there will be a change from the approved plans. And we are just discussing here, did the director err in approving the plans as they are? And the answer is no. The director decision was supported for all the reasons that I've explained, for all the reasons that are explained in the city's hearing brief. And then finally, in the hearing report, finally, I would just want to note that the idea that the permits had lapsed or that there was some issue with the equipment on the pole was raised. It was actually item 1 in the grounds for appeal and the notice of appeal that the applicant has not produced all the old permits demonstrating compliance with all terms of the permit and that the underlying permits remain valid and in force. So it is relevant to rebut this argument that somehow you need continuous permitting of antennas or equipment for the site to be existing, which is the argument that Mr. Strauss appeared to be relying on, and at least is relevant to what was raised as item 1 in the notice of appeal. So I do think that's relevant.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have no further questions, so unless there are housekeeping items, we can go ahead and close this hearing and go off the record. It's 8:42.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you. Yeah.